All right, everybody. Let's jump into it here. We have a playoff preview for Friend Group Fantasy Football Season 4. We're going to be jumping in here shortly into Sweetness Week, as we've called it just now, explaining it a little bit. So as we jump into the table of contents, we have a playoff format, just kind of making sure everyone's on the same page here of what it is. Then we have our Sweetness Week matchups, going over who I think might win, who might lose, see how things kind of go. And then finally, we'll be wrapping up with a brief overview of VBA, just kind of understanding how to use Visual Basic in Microsoft Suite 360. Just kind of how to best build macros to better utilize data analytics on your upcoming projects. But first, we got to discuss some fantasy football stuff. So what's the playoff format? I know it's been a little confusing. I think Carp and I have tried to explain it a couple times. But we are currently in Sweetness Week. So what is Sweetness Week? Well, we have two brackets for right now. We have the winner side and the loser side. If you're on the winner side, you cannot be in the toilet bowl. You cannot be our butler for the party. And if you're in the loser side, you cannot be the winner of the league. You cannot hoist the trophy. Now, there's another consideration. What is Sweetness Week? If you're not playing this week, so if you are Joey Randazzo, Maddie Olson, Reagan Cavoli, and Andrew Karpinski, and you're not playing this week, that means you cannot qualify for the cookie cake because the cookie cake is made from the winners and losers of either side to fill in that middle bracket. So that's why we called this Sweetness Week. So we have these two sides, and this is kind of how a bracket of a traditional this is how the toilet bowl and championship are going to look. So you can see here we have the teams seated as they are. And as each team wins on this left side, that gets you closer and closer to the championship. And then as you lose, you get closer and closer to the toilet. So knowing that, there's three brackets because if you lose the first round on the winner side or you win the first round on the loser side, you're still competing for something. So that championship bracket, that's the winners of the Sweetness Week's winner bracket and the highest seeds that have buys. Then the toilet bowl are the losers of the Sweetness Week's loser bracket and then the lowest seeds. Finally, the cookie cake is made up of the winners of the loser bracket and the losers of the winner bracket. That's what makes the cookie cake bracket. Another visual for those out there, I just put everyone in seeds 1 through 12, just kind of filled it out so you could see potentially who's slotted to finish where. I actually don't know if that's technically who's expected to finish there because I know Dan actually scored the second most points in the league. So, he might win his matchup. And Brian also, I think, had like a pretty good year, so he might be more competitive in the cookie cake round. Anyways, this is just a hypothetical. If everyone finished 1 through 12 right now, if we finished the season, here's how the brackets would look. Hopefully that makes sense. If not, text in the group chat. We'll get it all figured out. But let's jump into the Sweetness Week matchups. We have some fun games. I think we have some pretty evenly matched teams once you kind of look under the hood a little bit. And first up is none other than the Butt Farts and the Pretenders, Zin. Left that part out. It looked better on the slide deck. I'm sorry, Billy. So the Pretenders are 9-5. They have 1644 points for. And then the Butt Farts are 8-6 with 1727. Sheesh points for. That is the third highest point total. I think we finished within 3 points of Joey, and Dan finished, I think, within 2. So very tight at the top here for points for. Key players, I think these teams are actually pretty similar on paper. You see a lot of running back depth kind of carrying both these teams. And then there's just a couple other key impact players that are going to probably be difference makers. So the Pretenders, all of his running backs, Billy has 4 very good running backs, very consistently. You could start any of them every single week. He also then, most importantly, has Deebo Samuel on his squad. That man is a menace. He is someone to fear. Then the Butt Farts, they have Travis Kelce and Dak. Dak's playing like an MVP this year. That grosses me out to my core to say and admit and utilize, I guess. And then Travis Kelce, he's been a little bit slow, but he's still Travis Kelce. You still kind of have to, give him a little bit of respect. I would say push come to shove. I don't really know how to call this one. I think it's going to be very, very close. I think Deebo is scary, but we'll kind of see who ends up here. I'm not going to write Billy off like my co-host of the Friend Group Fantasy Football podcast, Andrew Karpinski, might. Next up is Turnover the Page versus the Navy SEALs. The turnovers are 9-5 with 1644 points for, and then the Navy SEALs are 8-6 with 1728 points for. So pretty similar matchups, like an 8-6 team with a lot of points for versus the 9-5 team with noticeably less points for. For the turnovers, Tony Pollard and all of those wide receivers, I think that is what makes the turnovers good, maybe even great. And then for the Navy SEALs, it's a very similar setup. They have their bell cow, Bijan Robinson, and then all of the Navy SEALs wide receivers are also excellent. It's kind of funny. The Pretenders and Butt Farts were kind of like a running back matchup, and then this one is all about the wide receivers. The SEALs have more depth across the board. That's not really as useful in the playoffs, right? Because it's good when you have like bye weeks and stuff. That said, though, I still think the top of the Navy SEALs is as good, if not better, than the turnovers. I do favor the SEALs here. They had a couple tough losses these last couple weeks down the stretch, but I think they're ready to bounce back, and I think their points for speak for itself. That said, if turnovers are going to win, I think it's going to be dark horse Geno Smith. Amazing trade acquisition by the turnovers. I think he could be the difference maker. He's the X factor. He is it for the turnovers. So we just might see a Geno Smith pop off. And I think if the turnovers win, it's because Paige has the strength and the courage to start Geno Smith and bench Trevor Lawrence. That does it for the winner side brackets. Now we're jumping into the loser side brackets. We have Herbie fully loaded versus the Hudson Bluehawks. I think the Herbie fully loaded helmet was my favorite one that I made. Just as a quick aside, I think it looks awesome. Herbie is 7-7 with 1585 points for versus the Bluehawks, who are 6-8 with 1647 points for. Just so we understand, 1647 points for is playoff worthy. That's what the turnovers had. That's what the Pretenders had. So the Bluehawks are not bad. For Herbie, there's Jamar Chase. I also saw she added Jake Browning for Kelsey. That's pretty big. You can double dip on those Jamar TDs now. That's assuming Jake Browning continues at this level. We'll see. But then TJ Hawkinson, great trade piece. Great tight end. He's been phenomenal in fantasy this year. He's going to be a difference maker. And then not Roschon Johnson. He's not on your team. That's a bummer. That's sad. Roschon Johnson rocks, and he is no longer on your team. That's like an inverse key player. Like, I feel bad that you don't have him anymore. Bluehawks, though, CeeDee Lamb, Jen, this is your bell cow. He is incredible. He is just a PPR machine this year. And then Breece Hall, he's also going to be a phenomenal running back for you, as well as George Kittle. I think George Kittle might equalize Hawkinson's production. And then I think it's just kind of the CD show. I do favor the Bluehawks in this matchup against Herbie. Herbie has been downtrending since those trades with Joey. That's neither here nor there. The Bluehawks have been, I guess, not really trending up since their trade with Joey, because that was like week 2. But Breece Hall's been phenomenal, and that's cool. Finally, last of the matchups in the loser side bracket that we have this week is the Chosen versus the F dihydrogen monoxides. The Chosen have a 7-7 record and 1513 points for. That is more in the tier of the Fighting Carps and the 1,000 points for the year, for context. And then the F dihydrogen monoxides have a 6-8 record with 1664 points for. That is exceeding those playoff teams we saw earlier by about 20 points. The Chosen, they got Josh Allen, they got Rashad White, and they have some awesome old head wide receivers. I bet Billy's very jealous he does not have DeAndre Hopkins this year. And then the dihydrogen monoxides have Christian McCaffrey, who is a beast, in the words of Andrew, a stallion. And then Brandon Ayuk and Michael Pittman and a couple other wide receivers who I consider to be like well above average. I would say this one goes to the monoxides. I think if CMC does his usual thing, it's going to be an uphill battle for the Chosen to begin with. I think Mike Evans is phenomenal still. I think Rashad White has been a fantasy breakout player this year. I don't know if that's enough to offset the production and the consistency of Brandon Ayuk, Michael Pittman, CMC. Maybe Josh Allen plays hero ball, and there's a big boom for the Chosen, but I think it's going to take several booms from the Chosen or several busts from the monoxides for this game to go differently. I do favor the monoxides here. So that said, thank you everyone for listening in. Best of luck to everyone in the sweetness round. I do have a little extra surprise for everyone. I made all of these helmets as JPEGs, PNG files. I'm actually not sure the technical term, but I have everyone's here, and they look great. I'm a big fan of them all. I'm going to be sharing this file once I upload this to YouTube. You guys can download them to your phone and then upload it to the ESPN app, and you can have custom helmets for the rest of the season. Herbie Fully Loaded, I think, is the only one that's like named after a player on their team. So that's something to consider. Maybe just draft Herbert next year and keep the cool helmet. Still haven't made ones for the other 4 teams. Jersey Chasers and Carps, I definitely will do, just because those have been your team names this whole time. Reagan has expressed interest in changing her Taylor Swift team name for next season. She's a little over T-Swift, is the word on the street. And Joey always changes his team name. So as far as helmets go, we might make them. But yeah, just a little something for you guys to enjoy. Merry Christmas. I'm about to go to the Edge Christmas party, and have fun and good luck in the playoffs.